Straight up, I mean, listen, sometimes people say, oh, Craig, you're really excited for this fight, or you oversold this fight, or whatever. This is my favorite fight of the weekend, and I'm only going to say that for this one. We have Raoni Barcelos taking on Timur Valiev. And Matt, for Timur Valiev, this is a guy that was like a World Series of fighting, an occasional PFL fighter, who is the boogeyman. Like, nobody wanted to fight him, and if you look at Timur Valiev's overall body of work, he has a couple of losses. He lost in his debut against Ali Reberg, and then he ended up losing to Chris Gutierrez in a split decision. Nobody's better at leg kicks than Chris Gutierrez in the lower weight classes. Chris will tell you that. Andre Ewell will tell you that. Who else? Cody Durden will tell you that. There's a lot of people that can say that, but for Timur Valiev, it's the wins. There's definitely some nice ones on the record, and it's the fact that he ended up beating Chris Gutierrez in his next fight. Now, he's got a win over Bekbalat Magomedov with the PFL, and he ends up fighting with GFC a couple of times before making the move to the UFC. Now, this was back in August of last year, and he ends up fighting Trevin Jones. Now, Trevin comes in on short notice. It was originally supposed to be Valiev and Jamal Emmers. We previewed that fight. We had Valiev to beat Emmers. We were so excited. Jones stepped in. It's like, yeah, sure, Valiev's going to win. Valiev ends up walking into a power jab in tight, gets rocked, gets finished. Trevin Jones, superstar. Oh, wait. Trevin Jones tested positive for Stephen A. Smith's favorite herb that he likes to use on the commentary, the weed. And Matt, this is my trouble with Trevin Jones' last fight. They don't really talk about that so much. They don't really consider it a huge win. And oh, by the way, when Timur Valiev goes out to fight Martin Day back in February, these are direct quotes from the broadcast. This is from the intro when they're previewing the fight before the fight. They have the nice little video package. Currently on a 7-fight unbeaten streak. And then, as Timur Valiev makes the walk to the octagon, Daniel Cormier says, and I quote, now his first UFC fight didn't go his way, but the fight did get overturned to a no contest due to a failed drug test. So it's almost like he starts over again. What the f***? The f***ing guy got knocked out in his UFC debut, and then he looked really good against Martin Day. He f***ing lost to Trevin Jones. Don't overlook that.
Exactly. Tell the story how it went. Like, listen, I don't care what your thoughts are on marijuana, and we're Canadians, so of course it's different up here. But, like, it's not that big of a deal that you should take away and overshadow the biggest win of a guy's career just because he failed for weed.
Now, it's still a 7-fight win streak. So, yeah, you can't cry foul too much, but that's a little bit of shifty marketing.
And this is why this fight should be so interesting, I think. Because if you look at the version of Timur Valiev that beat Martin Day, he did show why he is so good and why the hype was so real. He's extremely well-rounded. He's got great wrestling, great cardio. Like, he has everything that you really look for when you want a top prospect making their way into the UFC. The problem is that Trevin Jones fight did happen, and my problem comes down to Valiev's chin, oddly enough. Like, the shot that hurt him wasn't a shot that would hurt a lot of guys. And listen, he was moving in on it, like you said. Like, it was just a weird... That whole fight was weird. That's what I should say, just get out of the way. Like, it was a really odd fight. And for Raoni Barcelos, I feel like I bring him up more in other videos for this one factor. I bring him up for this reason. He is the fighter I think of as a fighter who, like, I wish he was 3 years younger. If he was 31 on this crazy win streak at this stage of his career, you could say, like, okay, the next 3 years, then maybe he can get to a title shot. Right now, he is outside the top 15 at 34 years of age. How ridiculous is that? Like, I cannot name 15 bantamweights off the top of my head that I think could beat Raoni Barcelos. If I'm being completely honest, like, he's also extremely well-rounded. He's got great scrambles, great jiu-jitsu. His stand-up has reached another level, too, which is another big thing. It's something that you kind of have to bring up with both guys. Both these guys were once something, but have since developed into really well-rounded fighters, and that's the really interesting thing about this fight.
For Timur Valiev, the background, it's really something special. Brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu under Ricardo Almeida. He trains out of the Nick Cantone MMA gym, so you're going to see Mark Henry. You're going to see, Frankie Edgars, beat Magomed Sharipov at one time training out of that gym. That's the thing. If you lump people from a certain region together, I mean, listen, Kazakhstan has better prospects than Canada at this point. And if you look at the region of the world that Timur Valiev is from in Dagestan, listen, not every fighter from Dagestan is the same. It's the same as Canadian fighters, Kazakhstan fighters. Doesn't matter where you're from. But if you look at it for Valiev, somewhat similar to Zabit and not as big of a wrestler. He's got the wrestling credentials, but he's a very flashy striker too. Master of sports in Sambo, international master of sports in pancration. You love to see that out of Valiev. For Barcelos, great ground game. Really, really, really good striking. But the important thing for Barcelos is if you go through the record, look at the fights that he was booked in that fell out, and that really tells the story. His last loss was at RFA 14. He got finished by submission against Mark Dickman. But after that, he's won and won again and again. Wins in RFA over Bobby Moffett. Former RFA champ, it was Barcelos. Beats Dan Moret. That one holds up. Fighter. Beat Kurt Hollabaugh. Beat Chris Gutierrez. Finished him. Listen, again, Timur Valiev lost to him and then ended up beating him. Beat Carlos Joaquin. Okay, cool. Beat Syed Nurmagomedov. Big win. Beat Khalid Taha. But again, the names. Syed Nurmagomedov, they had to shuffle the fight around. He's supposed to fight Cody Stamann. He was supposed to fight Merab. He was supposed to fight Marcelo Rojo. That was a short notice turnaround because he was originally supposed to fight Rafael Assunção. That's way up in the rankings. That's how much stock the UFC has in Barcelos. But they also have enough stock to really sell you a story, weave you a tale about Timur Valiev. Both of these guys mean a lot to this division, and that's why you should care about this fight.
Oh, I couldn't agree more, and I really do see a bright future for whoever wins this fight, because I think Raoni Barcelos has a very high ceiling in this division, and Timur Valiev is able to beat him, then he kind of takes all that hype, and the problem again with Valiev is I do have such a sour taste in my mouth from them, and I think it's so funny that you brought up the broadcast. It's just kind of funny how that's how they tried to spin the story. Just say he's a really good fighter. It's a lot better that way. For me, I like Raoni Barcelos in this fight because of his ability to scramble. I actually look at this fight, and I do think he's going to have to rely on that ability quite a bit, because for Barcelos, he likes the same range that Valiev does. He likes that sort of longer range, because Barcelos is weird. He is primarily a puncher. He will throw some kicks, don't get me wrong, but he's a very long-range puncher when he throws. He does get a lot of whip onto his shots, so he does stand at kind of a kicking range for Valiev, so I do think it's going to come down to those in-betweens for Barcelos. Can he get into scrambles? Can he go to the clinch effectively? Can he mix his martial arts, I should say? I think he will be able to do that, and again, when we talk about Barcelos and the guys we're supposed to fight, like the Rafael Assunção of the world, like, that's who I expect him to be in there with after this fight. For Valiev, again, I think this could be a rematch where we see both guys, like, in that 10-ish area one day. I really do. I just don't think he'll have enough to beat Barcelos this weekend.
Really sneaky fight. Barcelos open a minus 150 favorite. He's a minus 220 run right now. For Timur Valiev, maybe you like the value on Valiev? Value? Open to plus a 130. He's plus 177 right now. Over on Topology. Yikes. 940 total votes, 85% Barcelos, 76% by decision. For the 15% that have Valiev, 70% by decision. I think that the opening odds made a lot of sense. I think the fan votes are a little skewed. I'm eager to know what the fans are thinking, because this is one that I've kind of had a tough time trying to figure out and to try and offer up a prediction. I like Raoni Barcelos ever so slightly, but this is a fight where if I woke up on Saturday and Valiev won, I wouldn't be overly surprised. And listen, full transparency, this one's a really tricky card to try and pick if you're trying to make picks. So I am ever so slightly going with Barcelos, but it's a tricky one.
We would not have put this as a fight of the night if we thought it was going to be a one-sided just beat down by Barcelos. Like, we do think this is going to be a fun, competitive fight for as long as it lasts, but at the end of the day, I do have to agree with you and pick Barcelos.
Matt, both of us going with Raoni Barcelos to get the win, bringing the fight back to refit pro fighters. Pedro Hizzo, is he going to be able to go 2-0 on the night with Alves and Barcelos? We'll find out, but I absolutely love this card. Up at the top, Francis Cyril Gane, Le Bon Gamin, is taking on Drago Alexander Volkov. Absolutely love the fight. You're not going to want to miss that video, so make sure you check it out. Check it out, check around, don't check around. Stick around. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, and as we always say, let's get into it.